Good morning, friends. Well, rather, good afternoon, friends from around the world. I'm so happy to be here with you today. We have a remarkable guest to interview today, and it's actually a guy that I've been a huge fan of for many years, and I have a lot in common with him. This guy is a master of puns. He loves playing poker, and he's got lots of facial hair, and he outdoes me in all of those respects. So I'm super excited about what's to come here. We are interviewing Joe Stapleton. That's right, the legendary poker commentator who comments on many of the top poker games all around the world, with millionaires battling each other, the very top poker players in the world. And this guy is in the middle of it all, interviewing them, making hilarious commentary, and giving his 2 cents. And so let me repeat. This is absolutely surreal for me. So this show is brought to you by Karma Tribe, which is a global community of people willing to help each other for free. And it works through our website, karmatribe.com, where you can offer anything that you would like to offer to the world and request anything that you need. And basically, it's based on the philosophy that what's difficult for one person is easy for another. And why don't we all help each other? And this month, we are actually crowdfunding in order to expand Karma Tribe from the 56 countries where we already are active to the whole world. And you can check out our campaign and what this is all about in that link that's down there, karmatribe.com/I believe. That's for those of you who believe in the power of kindness, who believe in the power of community, and believe that communities can make change. So, Rufus, sit. So Joe was a very natural choice to invite on the show because he is the quintessential ambassador of good vibes, spreading smiles around the world, especially in the world of poker, which can be quite intense and, you know, kind of dark in some cases where people are losing a lot of money, but others are winning money. And amidst that intensity, this guy shines a ray of sunshine into that world. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Joe Stapleton.
Hey, everybody. Geez, what an intro. That was fantastic. Thank you. And thanks for paying attention. Like the fact people don't usually describe what I do that way, but that is what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make people happy, make people laugh. Sometimes it's at someone's expense, hopefully never mean, but and a lot of what I try to do off the microphone is to do the same thing. I just it's weird. I didn't realize I was on your radar.
Well, that probably goes on a lot more than you think, because you're looking at the camera and making like self-deprecating jokes all day long, but probably like hundreds of thousands of people are like sitting back and just smiling and laughing. So I think your impact is far bigger than you expect. And so, yeah, I can't thank you enough for what you do. It's really important, actually, I think.
Well, I appreciate it, but also, you know, I get paid, so it's not like I'm volunteering.
Always self-deprecating. So we got some comments coming in. Hello, Raquel. So great to see you here. Hello, John. Thanks for tuning in. This is awesome. So Joe, one does not go from just being a regular poker player to suddenly being a commentator for the biggest games in the world. Can you tell us a bit about where you come from and your journey to this big stage?
Yeah, I just I moved to LA to be a comedy writer, and I didn't really admit to myself that I wanted to be a performer as well. I kind of felt stupid saying like, oh yeah, I want to be an actor, I want to be a comedian. So I just lied to myself and everyone else that I just want to be a writer, and that was a struggle. And writing is hard, and being a successful writer is even harder. And so I kind of just didn't really try super hard, and also didn't get super lucky. And one summer, a buddy of mine named Scott Huff got a job as an intern for Card Player Magazine. I drove him out to Vegas for the World Series. I was off for the summer because I used to work for this TV show called Mad TV. Mad TV was on summer hiatus. I was not writing for Mad TV. I was essentially scheduling and booking catered lunches for everybody. But so I drove him out there, and they said, do you know anyone else who could write? And he said, yeah, this guy right here. And they hired me on the spot to also be an intern for the summer. So I started off in 2005, the year Joe Hashem won, as an intern for Card Player Magazine. The next year I came back as a video producer. They had about enough of my shit at that point because they didn't think poker should be funny. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, they did not hire me back again, but luckily there was a company called PokerWire also at the time who agreed with me that you needed to make poker a little bit lighter, a little bit funny to entertain people, especially people that might not already be in love with the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I went on to do a show for them, and then Barry Greenstein started a website called Poker Road, and I did a bunch of shows for them. And then PokerStars started this show called The Big Game. And luckily, I had people like Barry Greenstein and Joe Stapleton and Daniel Negreanu and a couple of executives at PokerStars who all jumped up and down and stamped their feet and said, Joe Stapleton must be the commentator on this show. We know he's got no experience. We know you're taking a chance. Trust me, you got to have him. They took a chance on me. The show was a pretty big success. I think it would have been a success with or without me because it was just a really great show. But I was lucky that I was given that opportunity. And I've been also very lucky that despite the ups and downs of poker, I really haven't had to look for work since 2009. So I've been really lucky, but that's the long and the short of the path.
Wow, that's amazing. So it all started with giving your friend a ride.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting, like a nice gesture on your part. And why do you think these famous guys like Barry Greenstein and why did they stamp their feet so hard in support of you? Did you become friends with them, or did they support like your philosophy? Or
what's really weird is that even to this day, the biggest consumers of poker media are poker players. So Daniel used to, and even to this day, I think still watches and listens to every podcast. And so everything that was out there, these guys were listening, and I didn't know. I didn't know these poker players who I was goofing on, who I was like making fart noises. Like I was just doing really dumb shit. And everyone in poker was listening and watching, and I had no idea. And so Daniel was just a fan. Daniel was a fan. Barry, I was on his radar because Joe Stapleton was on the first podcast I hosted for PokerWire. It was me and Stapleton and Gavin Smith. And so Barry, I was on his radar for that reason. Once Barry started Poker Road, then Daniel and a bunch of other poker players were consumers of that content. And Daniel was basically just a fan in the beginning. I didn't really know him at all. I've since become really close friends with Daniel. And speaking of karma, that guy is just an absolute karma machine, like a license to print karma. He is just one of the most generous folks I've ever encountered in my life. So, and I've been the beneficiary of some of that generosity. So, yeah, Daniel's a fan, and I got a little lucky.
Well, yeah, so that was one thing that I wanted to ask you was, do you believe in karma? And it seems like you just answered it. And so
I don't believe in karma as like, and hopefully this isn't offensive to your belief system and your audience. I don't believe in karma as a mystical force. Mm-hmm. I believe in karma as a quantifiable chain reaction, butterfly flaps its wings, and something good happens somewhere else kind of deal. So I believe it in that respect. When someone who's shitty gets in a car accident, someone goes, that's karma. I don't really believe in that. I mean, maybe their own actions just sort of caused it in some way, them being in a rage or in a hurry. But in general, I don't believe it as some like sentient force that's keeping track of things. No.
Fair enough. Well, so like Daniel Negreanu, so why did you say that he's like the karma master and doing so many positive things? Do you think that translates into better results for him?
I think that there is definitely something about his personality that makes him a good poker player and one of the few who can somehow pull off being friendly and chatty and make it work to his advantage. I think that, poker is a difficult medium when you're talking about karma, because typically you are rewarded for deception and oftentimes for bad behavior. And so, Daniel, in a way, his karma does help. Sometimes people just give him their money. But then you're kind of using karma for something that isn't really that karma-like. So, hopefully the game itself gets to be, a separate thing. And what he does off the table, I think maybe in general being a likable person might make people want to play with you more and or play less their A game against you. So maybe there's some small effect of karma on Daniel's game. I think that it's more like the opposite, where Daniel's so good at poker that he's used that to fuel karma. That he is, and for me in my life, I'm not going to lie, fame and fortune, they're pretty appealing to me. But one of the main reasons why I want those two things, and I think Daniel's done a great job of doing this, even if this wasn't his intent, is I want those two things because I want to be able to be generous and I want to be able to be an influential force of good. And Daniel has done both of those things in really big quantities, especially over the last few years.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing to hear. And that's so inspiring. And it's really cool to that you're spotlighting that and kind of paying attention to it. And because there's so many millions of just random poker players that are probably touched to see his actions and the way he invests his winnings and stuff. So it's a really amazing example, and it makes total sense what you said.
The poker community in general is a very generous community. Even though what is rewarded at the table is, to a lack of a better word, greed. These poker players off the table, I know more generous poker players than not. Poker players who are not very good at money management, who will donate large sums of their entire bankrolls just because they know it's easy come, easy go, and they have the ability. If you take a look at your sister, her doppelganger, Liv Marie, has this charity called Reg, and they've got dozens of poker players giving over money because they just want to be altruistic. They're just hey, we got to give back to the world.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I've heard that it was going to Burning Man that really changed her perspective, and some of these other top players, that experience of being in a gift economy. Have you heard that too?
I've definitely, I don't know if I've heard that. I don't know if I've heard that specifically from Liv, but it makes sense that, I see a lot of these poker players coming back changed, and how Burning Man has this life-changing sort of turnaround for them. And I think, I feel if I went, I wouldn't have that same sort of thing, but I feel my own sense of community is probably starts off in a different place than a lot of these guys do, where, I do think that poker teaches you to look out for only yourself. That is the way to be the best poker player. There's no looking out for someone else at the poker table. So I think that when you spend thousands and thousands of hours invested in an activity that rewards selfishness and greed, that you can sometimes lose sight of that community. I'm not saying it makes you a bad person off the table, but it might make you more reclusive. It might make you more introverted. And I think so having this communal experience at Burning Man probably is incredibly helpful for some of these guys that really don't get a ton of human interaction in a year.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. So a related kind of thing that comes to mind is don't you think that our relationship with ourselves is an important factor in success in poker in terms of for example, you wouldn't want to make a big mistake, under crazy pressure, after 20 hours of playing, you make a mistake because of a fear that creeps in, or doubting your own instinct. How important is having that kind of a really good relationship with yourself on the table?
Well, on the table, I think that it is, obviously any mental distractions whatsoever can get in your way. I think that in general, like major insecurities can get in your way. Fear of losing can get in your way. Fear of success can get in your way. Emotion can get in the way. But we're all human beings, and we all, still have those things. I think where those things are more important is what decisions you make when you're in between poker games, how you choose to spend your money. Do you win 100K in a poker game and then go lose it in the craps pit a minute later because knowing yourself in that way, how to manage your money, how to choose your next investment, whether it be the next time you sit down at the table or the next thing that you do with your money. I think that's probably where more poker players struggle with themselves. And the more that poker evolves, the less these guys, I see people, for lack of a better word, degenerates, are just fewer and further between. Every class of poker player that comes up is smarter and stronger than the last one. And when I say smarter, they're healthy. They try to be mentally healthy and present, and they meditate, and they eat well, and they're really thought leaders in a lot of ways. So the days of like the cheeseburger drilling, cigarette smoking, waitress ass slapping poker player are like pretty much behind us.
Wow, yeah, the bar keeps raising. So I'm curious, like your path as a comedian, in many ways, is kind of like a parallel to the path of a poker player, in that I'm sure you had to your relationship with yourself evolved, and you learned from your challenges. Can you talk about how you've evolved as a person from being on different stages and doing stand-up comedy?
Sure. One of the ways I've evolved as a person, comedy-wise, is that up until maybe the last 5 years or so, I would be a little bit riskier and edgier with my comedy. I've had to rein that in a little bit because of my corporate overlords for various companies I work for, but also, I am not proud, but would never lie about the fact, have I made a gay joke in my life? Absolutely. Have I made a black joke in my life? For sure. And I used to be able to justify those things by saying it's comedy. And I do think there is still room for us to have fun with each other's differences, but unfortunately, those things are too easily misconstrued as hate or as fueling hate for other people. And so that's one aspect of my comedy that I've reined in quite a bit. That I don't say every little thing that pops into my head just because it's funny. There is such a thing as a joke that goes too far. There is, and I think, look, as a comedian, I think we often take censoring ourselves too far. But at the stage of my life that I'm in right now, I like to err on the side of caution and be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And it would be, I say in my act that, man, I really can't wait for the day that like black people and women are fully equal with everyone else in society because they do dumb shit too. And I would love to be able to make fun of them. But at the moment, it just doesn't really look good to go on stage and be like, what's stupid about women? So I've evolved in that way. I've evolved in a way too where I've learned that comedy comes from pure unadulterated honesty. And when I am on stage and I am being dishonest, it is not quite as funny as the pure honesty. But I will say that as someone whose career has grown, I am not quite as able to be as honest as I once was because there's more people paying attention now. So there are things, and thoughts that I have and honest jokes I would like to make about myself or revelations I would like to make. But unfortunately now I'm not doing a podcast that 800 people listen to. I'm doing your show here, which however many viewers you have, but it's very possible that, one of my bosses from PokerStars clicks on this link and goes, oh, Joe doesn't think this, or or Joe, wow, Joe just said that. And so I need to be a little less honest in my comedy. And so finding that sweet spot now, something I can be totally honest about and also be inoffensive, is sometimes it takes some work, but that's why it's work. That's why we can't just go on stage and say whatever we want all the time.
Makes total sense. Yeah. So where do you find like inspiration? Like when you're writing comedy, do you just kind of like walk around town and look for like different things, or what do you do?
I mean, I literally do walk around town and look for different things sometimes. But as far as like mining material is concerned, I always say yes to new experiences. And so like recently this poker player named Adam Levy, who's like semi-retired from poker, moved to LA. We've become close. He's like, hey, do you want to go to this networking event with me? I got an extra ticket. No interest in meeting people. I have no interest in networking. But I'm like, you know what? It'll be cool. I'll go there and I'll sit and I'll just observe and I'll see what people are up to. And I wrote a bit that's probably not gold, but it's a bit that just says like, stop asking questions about beer. I was behind this guy that was like in line at the bar, and he's like asked the bartender like 17,000 questions about the beer. Like, which one's hoppier? What kind of cask is it? I'm like, shut the fuck up and order your beer. Do your research before you get in line. So, whatever. So, and I talked to a couple of different girls, and just, I really like witnessing and observing human interaction. So that's one way I mine material. And then generally I mine most of it from what makes me happy, what makes me pissed off, and what hurts me. I just really, if something hurts me, I generally can find a way to make it funny. So my pain is often turned into comedy. So another thing is that like I date a lot. I have not had a girlfriend for like longer than 4 months and probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And so, that sort of pain and the failure and the rejection does keep me sharp. It keeps me on my toes, and I'm grateful for that. And it is a consideration sometimes when I'm about to get in a relationship. I'm like, well, there goes a whole bunch of my comedy out the window. If I'm genuinely happy, how am I going to make people laugh?
Wow, that's hilarious. So we have a flow of amazing comments coming in here. Mark says, fascinating, honest discussion.
Thanks,
and
Mark.
I totally agree with him. We have my sister, Stapes.
Oh,
to see ya. And we have a mysterious question here. Is Stapes the missing link?
Look at this, guys. Check this out. We got a whole lot going on here. It's just,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Stapes.
How do they feel about male nudity on B Live? Because I think I just showed nipples.
I think that's okay.
Okay. Because funny story, there's this video of me getting waxed, my chest waxed by 2 lady poker players, and they used to run it during our commercials on Twitch, and Twitch made them take it down because it has male nudity on it. So.
Well, on the Karma Tribe channel, everything goes.
That's right.
So I'm curious. Do you have a story that you can share with us of a joke you went for that went wrong, and suddenly you were caught up in like a big mess?
I've been pretty good about it lately. And one thing also that I can say is that as far as television or webcasts are concerned, I have people that are, my boss's Twitter profile, you might still say, used to definitely say Stapes Wrangler. Part of her job is to make sure I don't say anything really stupid on the air. I guess, so it's hard to think of like particular anecdotes of me going too far, because I've been really sensitive to, especially on Twitter the last few years, because people are pretty ready to jump down your throat if you say anything that is like remotely offensive or exclusive. And so I've definitely like just held back on a lot of things because I'm like, is it worth it? Like, do I think this joke's okay? Yes. In my heart of hearts, do I know it's okay? Fine. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Something that my friends and I kind of use it to check each other a lot of the time. Like, yes, this joke is funny. Is the small amount of like non-existent really praise that you're going to get over this joke worth the vitriol and the, you know, the how upset you're going to make people? So I'm able to shy away from that most of the time. Let me just rack my brain for a second and see if I made a joke that actually, like a legit joke that actually upset. And like I do, like, okay, like I don't think this joke went too far, but I do a couple of jokes in my act about how I'm a white dude and I'm afraid people are going to think I'm racist. And all I want to know is like a straight white man, how much do two black people have to look alike before I'm allowed to mention it? Because the other day I was at a party and I was positive I met black twins, but you certainly can't be like, are you guys brothers? Okay, so I'll do this joke. And that joke is not a racist joke. It's a joke about being so afraid to be racist that you're afraid to make one of these racial faux pas. And so I tell that joke, and I've been absolutely accosted after getting off stage and poked in the chest by people saying, hey, that's racist. That's a racist joke. And I'll say this. It was a young white American woman who poked me in the chest and said it was a racist joke. And then I turned around and a black guy was like, oh my God, that shit's hilarious. I run a night in another city. You got to come do my thing there. So, wow. So I do think that you can talk about these topics and people are always going to be offended. I think intent matters a lot. I think intent matters quite a bit. If your intention is to still just to cause good, right? There's no ill intention in that joke. That joke is really to point out some of the ludicrousness of what's going on now. So there's no ill intention there. And it doesn't count for everything. If you do something and you fuck up and you make a joke that the majority of people say that's a racist joke, you have to go, okay, I don't see it, but you know what? You must be right and I must be wrong. And I think that's something that a lot of people these days, they really stick to their guns. People have a really hard time admitting when they're wrong. And I think it's perfectly acceptable to say, I don't understand why this is wrong, but I must be wrong if this many people are telling me.
Yeah, it's that humility, I guess. It's powerful. So Stapes, in becoming a famous guy, what is like an unexpected positive thing that's come out of it and an unexpected negative thing?
An unexpected positive thing. I don't know if any of it's either the negative or the positive or that unexpected, I guess. But positive things in general are just the sheer number of supportive people that I have and people who make it a point to tell me that they enjoy what I do, or that they, or sometimes I'll get letters from people. Actually, this is kind of unexpected. I will sometimes get a letter from somebody that'll be like, hey man, I had cancer, or I was suicidal, or I was going through a divorce, and I just want to let you know this thing that you did, this show that you had, really got me through a really dark time in my life. That is something that's been pretty unexpected, and that matters to me every single time. A negative thing that again is well, it's just, I guess it wasn't completely expected, was that the more, and I don't agree that I'm famous. I would agree that like I'm starting to be a little bit more well known, and I think that in the poker world, sure, but the more well known you are, it doesn't give you more freedom. It actually gives you less. Where you have, like, you know, my mistakes are going to be, someone's going to catch it. If I say something dumb, like, someone's going to notice it. If I not that I should be, but if I got a DUI in my car, someone's gonna, people are gonna find out about it. When there's one time I experienced something where I was at a club in London and I had a date with me and it was really crowded and she kind of got away from me a little bit and someone stopped me and asked me to take a photo. And excuse me, guys, I don't know how to get this off. Sorry. How rude. I don't know how to silence it. And I was walking through this club and this guy wanted a photo and I would never turn down a photo. Not at this point. I get asked so infrequently. I love it. But no, of course I'm happy to make, if someone cares enough to ask me, but all I said was, yeah, man, but you got to make it quick because if I lose this girl, I'm going to murder you. And I can only imagine if I was being stopped every few feet, it would be really difficult to really have a life. So I understand why people who, when they get really famous, might not want to deal with stuff like that. So, it's just the unexpected negatives are just kind of like, people pay attention to you a lot. You're scrutinized, I guess, is more.
So, Stapes, I'd like to ask you one last question. What do you think that this world needs more of?
That's really good to say more of instead of less of, because you're putting a positive spin on something rather than a negative. Because I can tell you a bunch of things we need less of. Let me tell you a bunch of things, but that was not the question that was asked. I think that the world, you know what? I should pull up a tweet from a while ago because this guy asked me, I'll never find this guy. I've been getting into it with trolls on social media, like pretty regularly lately.
Really?
Facebook, Twitter. I don't understand. I'm a pretty liberal person, okay? So there's pretty much where my politics lie, and I've been getting into it with people. And someone said, someone's like, why do you battle these trolls on the regular? And I said, I feel like because some people care what I have to say, I have a responsibility to spread good. And some trolls like, well, what do you consider good? So to answer your question, here's what we need more of in the world. Compassion, kindness, listening, honesty. And honestly, the big one is compassion. The lack of compassion that exists in the world, I don't think that every single person needs to go on your website and offer up items or their time to be a compassionate person. All you have to do is care about other human beings a little bit. And there's so much, I don't give a shit about this group of people, or I don't give a shit about those people, or that person lives across some imaginary border that's completely made up, so they're less important than the people that live on this side of the border. There just seems to be an absolute lack of compassion and empathy in a large percentage of the poor population. And so at the very least, like, let's say that you don't got a dog in the fight when it comes to the transgender bathroom game, right? Like, let's say like you don't know any transgender people, you're not transgender, you don't get it, right? At the very least, you should be like,